What up, Marsh Pod? It is that time of the month. Poor phrasing, but hey, pointless power rankings, man. Pointless power rankings. What more do we need to say? Let's do it. Okay, just over a month since we did this last. We did the last power rankings, pointless power rankings, because that's exactly what they are, on April 26th. These were those rankings, so just over a month ago. Number 1, Originators. 2, Rocky Mountain. 3, Beast of the East. 4, Bay Area. 5, Lone Star. 6, Gotham. 5, 7, Showtime. 8, H-Town. 9, Southeast. 10, Best Coast Ballers. That is what our 10 was. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up for the new 10. Number 10, H-Town Hoopers. I'm not putting a team that hasn't figured out their coaching situation any higher than this. They were 9 last month, as we said. By the time this comes out, they're going to play tonight against Beast of the East. I would expect their coaching decision to have been made if they're going to run with Ray Fox or if there's going to be a change of leadership. I just think this, by the time you listen to this, I think we're going to have an answer. They're awesome when their players are coached. They've been awesome, but they are a ship with no captain. So until that's figured out, this is where they're going to sit. They're going to sit at 10. I got nothing else. So 10, H-Town. 9, big drop, Beast of the East. Okay, they were number 3 last month. Last time, we talked about them having a big stretch where they got 2 games left in that stretch. Here's how it went. First up, Showtime, that was a loss. Second game, Originators, that was a win, 1-1. Next game, Asia Pacific, that was a win. AT Aliens, that was a win, 3-1. Until they lost to Lone Star, lost to Gulf Coast, and now they've got back-to-back road games against H-Town and Southeast Select. If they lose both of those, let's say they go 500, they win both. They beat H-Town because they're a mess and they, coaching-wise, not on the roster, and then they lose to Southeast. That's 4-4. That's not, even if they go 5-3, this doesn't really instill a ton of confidence that you've figured it out, that you've got it all going. They're really good. They've got really good players. I really like that team, but they just haven't had a dominant stretch in an opportunity where they really could have put a major stamp down to say we are among the best. Number 8, I'm going Showtime. I really like them. I really like Showtime. When they're on, they are awesome. Bronny James is incredible. Corey Yams is a fantastic facilitator. They're finally getting him some help, Bronny, that is. Nick Moss has been playing well. Jackson McLean. But they're just inconsistent, or they're consistently average. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. That's it. They just haven't. Same thing with Beast. Same thing with H-Town. But not so much H-Town. Same thing with Beast. They just haven't had this month-and-a-half stretch where you're just like, wow, that's good. That's a good mark. They have a capability to win a championship. They have the pieces there, but their coaching situation hasn't really been figured out. There just seems to always be a question mark. First, it was who's engaged from a coaching standpoint. Next, it was, do they have enough help? Now they have enough help, but they lose to the Originators, and they give up 86, and you're like, well, okay, we got some help. Bronny doesn't play in the fourth quarter, so I don't know what Coach Hamilton's doing there. And your defense was awful. So all of these pieces, it's just I'm always coming up with a question for Showtime and never an answer. It's not a good recipe. Coming in number 7, Rocky Mountain. Big drop from number 2, second farthest drop. That was 5 spots. They fluctuated on here because they fluctuated on the floor. They won 5, they lost 3. They won 5, they lost 2. They won their last one to stop that trend, which means they're going to win their next 4, and they're going to lose a game. So it'll be 5-3, 5-2, 5-1, and then they're not going to lose again the rest of the season. Tongue in cheek, but that's just what it's kind of felt like. They have those dominant stretches that we just talked about Showtime and Beast not really having. They've had those. But at the same time, they just haven't. When they stumble, they just fall, man. They just fall flat. There's a team above them, obviously, because we haven't gotten to them. And spoiler alert, Originators isn't off the top 10. But they had the stumble. But for the most part, a lot of these teams just haven't had this stumble and then stumble again. And that's what Rocky Mountain has done. They've stumbled and they've stumbled again. But I would rather have them have these stretches of dominance and then stumble compared to somebody like Showtime, somebody like Beast, where their records are pretty similar, but they just have been slightly above average for the duration of the season. Rocky Mountain has had those stretches where you really look at it and say, wow, okay, Justin Bell taking over as the number one guy. They've got 4 dudes averaging 10.9 points, one of 5 teams in SimWorld Hoops with such a roster makeup. They're really good when they're really good, but when they're really bad, they're really bad. And there's a big delta between the front and the back of that. All right, next up, number 6, Southeast Select. They're 6-2 in their last 8 games. They did lose back-to-back games against Philadelphia and Run DMV. They've got that matchup with Beast to the East on the horizon. But here is a crazy stat for you. Trey Turner, and I was looking through these rosters, looking through the league. I didn't go to the league leaders because I'd rather just kind of look at where you're doing individually. And it stood out to me about how good of a shooter Trey Turner has been. Okay? He has 74 made threes. That leads the league. Second place, Kadarius Loftus with 60. Third place, Azad Abdul-Rahman with 48. The difference from Trey in first and Loftus in second, 14 made threes, is more than the difference of made threes between Loftus and Jay Laster, who's number 10 on the top 10, which is 13. I don't want to hear it. I've offered a name, and that name was not even in the league right now. I will never hear an argument, just like I won't hear an argument that Steph Curry is not the best three-point shooter or even shooter of all time. Trey Turner is the best shooter in SimWorld Hoops. There's not a conversation. There's not a debate. And it's going to take Herculean efforts for anybody to ever top that. I'm not talking this season. I'm not talking next season. I'm talking about the foreseeable future, so long as the general makeup of this league stays somewhat similar. Trey Turner has not made fewer than 4 3-pointers in his last 10 games. That's insane. I don't know if it's quite 10. I'd have to pull it up. I'm not going to waste good audio with that. But it's a very long stretch. He is incredible. That's why they're a championship caliber team. Number 5, Best Coast Ballers. Darius Outlaw, big knock. Last season, question, is he capable of taking over? He had a red-hot start out of the season, had a couple 30-point games, and then he just fizzled, and he just was okay. He was just average. He has been unlocked since Mikey Williams left. Or I wouldn't say left, since Mikey Williams ceased to exist in the Best Coast Ballers locker room. He's not, but he's got a case for the best player in SimWorld Hoops. And in their last 8 games, they're 7-1, with the lone loss being a 7-point defeat to Atlantis, who is a not bad 7-9. So I'm going to catch a stray here, but it's not like you lost to the North by 12, right? You lost to a good basketball team. 7-1 in their last 8. They've been playing awesome basketball since the beginning of this season. And Darius Outlaw has been playing phenomenally in the most recent past. Best Coast, by the way, jumping from 10 to 5 for that one. All right, next up, number 4, Originators. They fall from number 1, and it's because of that 3-game slid. We talked about it with Rocky Mountain. You have those really great stretches, but then you stumble. This was the first time we saw Originators stumble, and they came back. They beat Showtime. I'm not panicking. Fourth best team in the league. That's really good. But it was the longest time they've looked out of sync, and specifically Kadarius Loftus has been mediocre the last 2 games, and even on his big scoring nights, he's just been inefficient. He's got 60 made threes. 12 of them were in 1 game. I mean, that's literally the difference between him being, second at 51, 52, let's say, and second at 60, because he's got that 12-point edge on Azad Abdul-Rahman. which, by the way, I think my math is completely wrong on Southeast Select as I'm looking at it. It is. It's not 13, it's 23, because, we speak, we don't do math, so check the... Well, I'm not going back to edit that, but that doesn't discredit that Trey Turner is a freaking animal. But to get back to the Kadarius Loftus point, he made 12 of those in one game. Let's give him two. Let's give him two. And instead of 10, and he's at 50. That's a 24-point or made 3 difference between first and second if he was in that situation. But that's Loftus has been struggling. So to the actual point that we're making, Loftus has been struggling. But they still have the top seed in the Legacy Conference, and they won't have this losing streak knock them out of being a legitimate contender. They need to figure out a way to get Loftus back in. I continue to believe that Coach Dodge is the best coach in SimWorld Hoops. But that slide, is what's confusing, concerning about where does this team end up at the end of this. Is it a blip like it could be, or is this a sign that they have this in them, much like Rocky Mountain does? And the fact that this is even a question, that's where the biggest, head scratching comes from. All right, number 3, from the depths, number 3 team in SimWorld Hoops, I'm going with Run DMV. Welcome back, Coach Murray. They've won 5 straight. They've won 8 of their last 9. The lone loss is the 108-104 thrilling game to Best Coast Ballers. Their last loss was on April 11th. To Indy more than a month and a half ago. They have 6 players who have made 10 3-pointers in the season. That's most in SimWorld Hoops. Said it at the beginning of the season. The biggest thing for this group was, is there going to be a team that's able to go shot for shot with them? And I didn't think that team existed. It's not about total made threes. It's about having players throughout the floor that can shoot and make the 3 with confidence. They have that. And it's not like a bunch of dudes making 10 or 12. They have a couple guys that are making 12. But Trey Trust has 43. Brandon Smith has 22. Charles Pinkard has 22. That's where it is. It's a depth of good shooters. At the same time, Kamarian Bracken looks like a top guy. In those last 9 games, he's averaging 15. In his last 7, he's averaging 16.5. In those last 9 games, he only has 2 games where he scored less than 11 points. He's been on for this last month and a half. It continues to be the question mark. It was the question mark for Run DMV. It was a question mark for H-Town. It's a question mark for Run DMV. Did they have a guy? Yeah, they might start winning some games, which they were doing, but did they have a guy? They've continued to win games, and they found a guy. Kamarian Bracken is that good. Number 2, Bay Area. They go up 2 from 4. Previous number 1 team in these rankings. Why are they 2? They've won 4 straight games. Granted, some of it against mid-tier competition, but this is going to sound a little backhanded compliment, and I don't mean it as such, but I actually think the departure of Xavier Pope could help them. All right, it streamlines the top of the roster. The awesome part of this team, and it was a concern that we talked about at the beginning of the season, was that they have so many good guys. And the difficulty in that is it's for the opposing team, you can't go and shut down one of them. The difficulty, though, for Run DMV is, at the end of the game, who are we turning to? Yeah, you have a litany of options, but you don't have the guy, like Originators has DJ Wagner, to just say, go, do. Everybody clear out because nobody can take this guy on head-to-head. I don't think Bay Area has that guy bona fide. I'm not saying Caden Shipp or Royce Anderson can't be that guy, but they don't have that bona fide, clear out, let this guy cook. But by removing Xavier Pope, again, not because I don't think he's a great basketball player, I think he is, but they had a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And so now it's kind of taken down. Okay, it's Trey Hyman, he can be a guy. Royce Anderson can be a guy. Caden Shipp can be a guy. Sean Hyman can be that guy. Dime Hardaway, but it's not so big. And it's one name being taken out of that list, but that still matters. And I think it's going to help out, especially Royce Anderson, that consistency. I know we talked about it last week. or on a previous pod, like, the fact that we got to ask this question about, does a bad game kind of send him in the wrong direction? I don't think that's necessarily true. It's just a question. Royce Anderson's good enough to be that guy, and I think that move, in a way, really helps him. And then a number one team jumping from 5, Lone Star. I won't let their last loss to Gotham 5 deter their ranking, which in that loss really liked what we saw from Mason Green as a playmaker at the 4. The size of Gotham 5 hurt them. It seemed like the first time, not the first, but an inconsistency that Gotham 5, who, by the way, is a team that gets bumped out of these top 10 for Run DMV. They were good. They weren't great. Gotham 5. Lone Star, though, has been awesome. They've got big games when they needed to. The Gotham 5 loss withstanding. They got that win over Beast of the East on the 18th. They've still got, in my opinion, maybe the best backcourt in SimWorld Hoops in Jace Miguez, Nitty Gibson. They got to figure out Mork Thomas at point guard. Is he their point guard? Because the guy can't shoot, and they needed him. They were down 3. He had a wide open shot in the corner. They needed him to take the shot, and he didn't take it. So they've got to figure out that. I think you move Tyrell Marr to the starting 5, but that's for Evan Adkins' decision to be made. Because Mork Thomas just is not doing it. Yeah, he's leading the team in assists, but you don't need it. But Lone Stars is awesome, man. They're still a really good basketball team. They're doing a lot of talented things. I'm not going to have one loss change that just because it happened to be on Tuesday night. So, all right, that's it. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you on Tuesday.